Good evening, everyone. Okay, Vic, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Vic. And do we have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or any other disclosable interest for anything on the agenda this evening? I don't see any hands, thank you. Confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, which was held on the 28th of January. Could I ask for a proposing councillor that they were, as we saw. Thank you, Dean, and a seconder. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. Chairman's announcements. Again, I'll keep this reasonably brief. Since our last meeting, I've continued to represent Malvern Hills District Council at several events around the region and engage with other chairs and mayors. It continues to be a great honour to do so. At our last meeting, there was a certain level of shouting out towards the end of the meeting. May I just remind everyone, obviously with the agenda item we've got at the end of this meeting in particular, that everyone, obviously there's a proper way in which to get my attention. Just pop up your hand and indicate you want to speak and I'll come to you. In regards to the particular agenda item, I understand that people might want to speak more than one time. That's absolutely fine. There's not going to be any restrictions on that, but just show me your hand and somebody will notify me that you want to speak and I will come to you. I've absolutely no intention of not allowing all councillors to have their say on any topic point, and that's why we're here and obviously why we're all elected. If anyone wants to discuss anything with me prior to any council meeting or after any meeting, please feel free to reach out. And just finally, one reminder that on the 28th of March, the Tourism Forum, which is run by our Economic Development team, will be at Elgar's birthplace in Lower Broadheath. This will be a run-through of the tourism strategy with local businesses going through what's coming up and what we're doing to promote tourism across the district. It's obviously on my patch and I've worked with Victoria to have this at the National Trust venue and all councillors are very, very welcome. Agenda item 5, public participation. We don't have any this evening. So on to agenda item 6, leaders' question time. And we've got a question from Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid it's deja vu, it's Rushwick train station again. So I have repeatedly asked about the funding for the Rushwick train station and for action from those who have influence, including our MP, Worcester County Council Highways Cabinet members, both of them, the leader of Worcester County Council and now 2 leaders of MHDC. The last time I asked, I was told it was good news as the train station funding was now part of a new policy. Since then, we've had a few changes. So can I ask once again, on behalf of the residents of Rushwick and the Parish Council, and all those who may want to access Worcester or the motorway from the north of the district, can the leaders set out when the Rushwick train station will open?
Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. The previous update referred to was based on the strategic outline business case for the station at Rutwick, prepared by Worcestershire County Council and SLC Rail, as well as Network Rail's West Midlands Strategic Advice back in October 22, that articulates Network Rail support for a new station at Rushwick. Both are reiterated in the Statement of Common Ground for the upcoming SWDPR examination signed by the South Worcestershire Councils, Worcestershire County Council and Network Rail. This sets out the parties' intention to deliver a new railway station at Rushwick by the end of the SWDPR plan at 2040, that period ending in 2041. The Statement of Common Ground was submitted to the SWDPR examination on the 5th February 2025 for the consideration of the inspectors. Further, the SWDPR inspectors have raised a series of matters, issues and questions in advance of the examination hearings that were published on the 3rd of January 2025. The South Worcestershire Councils have responded to the specific questions on this matter. In summary, the response to one of those questions cites the documents referred to previously, expanding on the business and economic case, but also recognising that the Rushwick railway station cannot come forward until the Victorian era signalling at Worcester has been modernised. The timing and funding for the signalling improvements are separate to the SWDPR process and are being worked on currently by Network Rail and Midlands Connect to enable delivery of the western proposals of the Midlands Rail Hub with the economic incentives that this will bring to South Worcestershire. The response to questions 144 and 145 goes on to further explain that in the interim, land has been identified and safeguarded for the site of the railway station, and this is also referred to in a further statement of common ground between the South Worcestershire Councils, Worcestershire County Council and Barwood Land, the main developer, submitted to the inspectors on the 24th of February. A response to the question 145, along with the statement of common ground with the main developer, explains that the railway station is envisaged as a transport hub. The initial phase in advance of the delivery of the railway station would provide car parking for around 500 cars, with enhanced bus services to connect to Worcester, Malvern and beyond. Bus service provision would initially take the place of the rail provision with frequent services. This would then subsequently be repurposed as the rail station car park once the latter is delivered, with an interchange facility between bus and rail. In addition, a package of active travel, that is walking and cycling measures, are proposed within and beyond this development to promote more sustainable travel options. The network proposed includes links into the new primary school, transport hub and community and rail facilities. Looking beyond the settlement, links are proposed into Worcester. Therefore, in summary, although it is not possible to provide a specific start date for the delivery of the railway station, the parties involved are committed to doing so by 2041. In the meantime, changes are proposed as part of the SWDPR examination that commences on the 4th of March to the policy covering the expanded settlement at Rushwick, SWDPR 53, to ensure that the delivery of a transport hub as part of the development's planning application to ensure that the allocation is sustainable from the outset.
Thank you, John. Before I come back to Sarah, that's obviously a long response. I take it a copy can be given to Sarah, so she's got a copy of that. Is that okay?
Thank you, that's absolutely fine. I don't need a copy. I think I preferred Douglas's answer because it was a little bit more precise, bless him.
Can I ask you if you do have a supplementary question?
Yes, a supplementary would be, I thank you very much for that. I am told that the signalling will not be changing until around 2040, so that would mean it might make it a little difficult to deliver it by 2041. But my question would be, it doesn't appear that anyone is working on the funding for this. So it's all very nice to have all these ideas and we might have a bit of land and we're not entirely sure when we might build it. But what I was trying to do was get somebody to start driving on the funding. So where would the leader please lead, perhaps with Worcester County Council and our MP and anyone else, on finding the funding to actually build the station? Because that is the key thing. By 2041 we need a lot of millions of pounds and apparently we don't have any at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. John, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to investigate this question further and I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you. We don't have any further leaders' questions for the leader, so we're on to agenda item 7, which again is coming back to John, and that's the council tax and budget for 25-26. Could I invite you, John, to remove the recommendations in the report?
Okay, council tax budget for this coming financial year. We have before us the recommendation of the Executive Committee for Revenue and Capital Budgets and the council tax for the coming year. I'd actually like to thank the officers for all the work that they have done on this. And it's been quite a, I guess, as it is every year, quite a long process. And I'd like to thank them for all the efforts and the good results that they've put together on that. Broadly speaking, there are 4 elements for approval. So let me take you through these. First recommendation is that the council's revenue and capital budgets and no Band D equivalent increase in council tax. We want to approve both of those. Second is for the calculation of the tax base. which is 33,558.01 as the calculated tax base, and associated amounts are shown in the Appendix A to be approved also. Third is to approve the specific council tax requirement for the council, which comes to £6,127,693. Fourth is to approve the estimated amounts in the calculation leading to the final figures as per column 3 in Appendix A. You can see in this report the different elements of the calculation required by the 1992 Finance Act. Council is asked to note the precepts issued by Worcester County Council, Hereford and Worcester Fire Authority, West Mercia Police Authority, itemised in the table in the report. All these amounts are aggregated together, resulting in the council tax figures shown in column 4 of the Appendix A. The outcome of that is an average council tax for a Bandee property of £2,280.82. Those are the recommendations before you for council for approval.
Thank you, John. Do we have a seconder for that? Jeremy?
Yep, happy to second that. We can do this because we've had better than expected government grants, and obviously the news that we'll be debating later around the potential move to unitary means that we don't need to put so much money away in the future to cover a 5-year plan, for example, if we've only got 3 years to go. So I'm happy that we don't have a council tax increase going through this year, and I'm hoping that the council will look at how we can really benefit our residents before we do close our doors in 3 years' time.
Thank you, Jeremy. As well as obviously John being here, we've got Andy Baldwin on hand to answer any questions. Can I invite members to debate? Are there any questions, comments? I can't see any. Okay. Should we move this to a vote?
Because it's the budget, I'll to take a named vote. Members, it's a named vote because it's the budget. I will call out your name, and if you can indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Allen. For. Councillor Bennett. For. Councillor Bruton. For. Councillor Chan. For. Councillor Clark. For. Councillor Pam Cumming. For. Councillor Paul Cumming. For. Councillor Driscoll. For. Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Godwin.
For.
Councillor Jones-Williams. For. Councillor McVeigh. For. Councillor Mead. For. Councillor Michael. For. Councillor Mills. For. Councillor Nielsen. For. Councillor Owenson. For. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Rain. For. Councillor Rouse.
For.
Councillor Fran Victory. For. Councillor Malcolm Victory. For. Councillor Walton.
For.
Councillor Watkins. For. Councillor Cathy Wells.
For.
Councillor Tom Wells. For. Councillor Watley. For. Councillor Wilde. For. Councillor Wilmot. For. Councillor Wood. For. So, Chair, that vote is carried unanimously.
Thank you, Misha. Thank you. On to agenda item 8, the Treasury Management and Investment Strategy. And again, can I ask John to move the recommendations in the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Treasury Management and Investment Strategy for the coming financial year 2025-26. Three categories. We have three categories of investment: Treasury Management investments, which is the surplus cash day to day, and then there's service investments and commercial investments. So those three categories are the three investment categories. The cash surplus comes from council tax and grants, any cash held in reserves for future use, and we also have cash from other taxes for local authorities and from central government. £40 million is the balance, the yield from which is set in the budget of 3%, which gives a £1.2 million expected return. Cash portfolio is managed in-house and short-term with HSBC and the CCLA, where we have security and liquidity as a priority. So prudent investment is the basis for all our investments, actually. The expected return on that in the current financial year is expected to be 1.923 million, and that rate of return represents 4.79% return on the year. So the end of year performance is in the final accounts report, and that will come out in the following year after the end of the financial. Capital reserves at the end of March 24 were 6.4 million, and at the end of the medium-term financial plan, they're expected to reduce down to 1.5 million. We are aiming to deliver it without borrowing, as we said in the same position last year, and given our level of reserves over the next 3 financial years, at least there is no need to borrow. Service investments for us is shares in Malvern Hill Science Park in partnership with Worcester County Council and Worcester Chamber of Commerce. We have 9% voting, and we have non-voting shares P1 and P2, which actually accrue dividends pertaining to the number of P1 and P2 shares we have. Commercial investments are Tenbury Business Park, where we have £518,000, and that yields £46,000. Spring Court has £670,000 invested, yielding £45,000 annually. And Spring Lane, £777,000, yielding £52,000. This portfolio has been assessed on underlying assets deemed to provide security of capital invested. In the CITFA Prudential Code for Capital Finance, limits are set to ensure that investments are both affordable, prudent and sustainable. And this requires limits on external debt to be determined. However, our debt is zero, we don't have any, and we aim to remain so over the next 5 years. So this is the strategy for 25-26. I recommend it to Council for approval.
Thank you, John. Could I get a seconder to that? Thank you, Peter.
May I speak to the item?
You can, of course.
Thank you. Chair, I'm grateful for the portfolio holder for going through the minutiae of this. It's always good to know. But I think we're missing a trick in not highlighting to both ourselves as councillors and also, more importantly, to the residents, just how important and how valuable the Treasury management activity is. It's been already said that it's 1.9 million this year. You know, that is pretty much the same number as we get in from business rates over the entire district. It's way more than the grants that we get from government in this or any other year. It's 10 times the money that would accrue from a £5 council tax rise. It is serious money that is to the good of our residents and represents outstanding business management by Mr. Baldwin and his team. This really tells the true story that the public sector can be every bit as good as the private sector, and frankly I think in some ways better at this borough. If only the county council would follow suit, I can hear people saying. I commend this to councillors. I commend it and recommend that you don't change a damn word of the strategy, pardon my language, and hope that we'll also add a recommendation that Mr. Baldwin and his team are to be congratulated and thanked for all they do in this area.
Thank you, Peter. Very well said. Any other comments, thoughts, feelings on this, Jeremy?
It's just I echo exactly what both the people have said. I mean, I've been on this council 9 years now, and I think, you know, the strategy's been pretty much the same for 9 years, and it's been very good. The only thing I would say the difference over those 9 years is the increase in the interest rates, which we're paying dividend for. I would draw your attention to 4.4 in the report that says a 1% drop in the interest rates would lead to a 400,000 shortfall. I don't think the 1% drop is going to happen. But it is pretty much down to interest rates. May they stay high for a long time as a pensioner.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, thanks. Just to reiterate Councillor Watley's praise, quite simply, well done to officers. No debt is no accident. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts, feelings on this? Shall we go to the vote?
All those in favour? That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, Misha. On to agenda item 9. So devolution and local government reorganisation. And again, can I invite John to move the recommendations in the report? Thank you, John. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We all understand that the government is dissolving two-tier local authorities, and we are going to move to mayoral combined authorities and single tier for local government in Worcestershire, and in fact throughout the country that this is going to happen. Since the devolution white paper came out on the 16th of December, there has been a whirlwind of meetings, briefings and lobbying from DCN, CCN and the LGA. And then this month, on the 5th of February, Worcestershire leaders received an invitation from the Minister to submit an interim plan by the 21st of March and submit a formal proposal by the 28th of November this year. All councils in Worcestershire are expected to cooperate and work collaboratively to formulate a response and submit proposals that will be in the best interests of our residents. Government ambition is to have more decision made at local level and to devolve powers to enable this ambition. So we are offered more control through a new unitary local government reorganisation and a combined authority structure. So we can develop better connectivity, develop our local economy, put care back into social care, plan longer term, integrate public and private transport, buses, trains, all this supporting jobs and growth in our area. Today at Council, we've got the opportunity to put our views forward how best to take advantage of this opportunity. So I look forward to hearing all of your views on this matter. This is a momentous time for us because it's a big change in local government and the impact on residents must be a positive one. So I look forward to hearing your views on that. The recommendations are in paper in front of you, and I shall read them out if that is appropriate. You happy with that? Okay.
Okay. So the recommendations that you've got here are the 4, aren't they, including 4.1 and 4.2? Is that correct, John? Okay. Can I just see firstly, do we have a seconder on those recommendations? Thank you, Jeremy. And can I open this up to debate, discussion and thoughts? Paul?
Right. South Worcestershire is by far the best option for a number of practical reasons. First of all, being that we've got a South Worcestershire development plan, and I wouldn't trust the government not to scrap that if there was any other size of authority on some technicality. And we'd be back to square one after all the work, and our residents and our areas, and particularly the areas where we don't want development, would be at risk. That's number one. It was interesting, the debate about Rushwick. I saw in the papers this week boasts about Parkway being so successful, new transport links between Worcester and Birmingham being trumpeted. We never get anything over here. This link between Worcester and Hereford has been left to just fall apart. And if we are part of a bigger than South Worcestershire area, that will continue to be the process. We will be on the edge, we'll be on the periphery, and we will be left without the resources that we need.
Thank you, Paul. Martin?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good evening, Council. I find myself, I'm reasonably happy with both options, and probably I favour the two council option, two unitary authorities. But I do think we need to think very carefully about this. As a county councillor, I'm very much aware of some of the services the county council provides, and that we would have to provide. It wouldn't be an option, we would have to provide them. Highways, social services, schools, special educational needs, which takes a massive chunk of the county council's budget. And if you're not a county council, I suggest you go away and find out, because it will frighten you, the amount of money that has to be taken. And there is no debate about it. There's no discussion. You have to do it. It goes. The county council, to be fair, in one way, in the last few years, has put £6 million into Upton to bring a new roundabout on the A4104, the A38, which is much needed. It was an accident black spot. You've got the Keypax footbridge, which is perhaps not as well needed. It's a nice thing to have. And that has ended up costing round about 17–18 million pounds. We're still waiting for the final bill. The ongoing Evesham Bridge that was voted through last September, that's on course now. It started at £12.5 million. It's now at 16. It will probably go up again. We're also looking at a new school, high school in Worcester. That's got to be paid for by the new unitary authority. And then, when the county council and the district councils go, any debts are heading to the new unitary authority, be it one unitary authority or two. And I think I need answers from our leader and others, how we're going to manage this, either as a complete unitary authority or as a South Worcestershire unitary authority, because the worst thing we can do is end up going for the wrong one with the right intentions and finding when it's formed we can't actually afford to do anything for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Natalie?
So soon, thank you. I think we've all read the papers, so I'm a bit surprised to see such a dramatically different set of proposals or recommendations before us tonight. But perhaps more information has surfaced between the agenda papers coming out and now, who knows. But anyway, local government reorganisation is coming our way. That's clear, no ifs, no buts. But we also know that there's a gaping hole in the information that's been passed down to us from central government. As Martin just said, what we still don't know includes some pretty fundamental stuff. For example, what will they accept in terms of population size of the unitary? They've said they'll consider populations of less than 500,000, but on what basis? What should we interpret the phrases achieving efficiencies, improve capacity and withhold financial shocks to mean? We're told that they'll be taken into account when deciding if our unitary is the right size. Where's the modelling, as Martin said, that shows us that we can deliver key services and improve if we form a South Worcestershire unitary? Of course, I'm talking about SEND, adult social care, homelessness, children's services, to name but a few. Basically, we haven't seen the front of the fag packet that these so-called LGR and devolution plans have been written on the back of. There are decisions for us to make, like how do we plan to consult partners, including town and parish councils, staff and residents. We don't know what to consult them about without further information. We know that government are unlikely to respond to any initial comments that we make when submitting them by the 21st of March. Before then, the deadline for the next plans to be submitted in November. So that's no way to involve and value us. Anyone would think that they'd already decided the shape of Worcestershire's unitary authority and are actually not interested in our views or those of our residents. Although, thank you. Although Worcestershire is not on the government's priority programme for devolution, we should all be watching the unfolding process taking place in other parts of the country with interest and laser-sharp attention. It's clear that the government wants homogeneity to be an outcome of this process. Now, we could argue in favour of the benefits of two-tier local government, of which there are many, or against the relevance of a metro mayoral model to rural counties like ours. But I suggest that approach might be a waste of our valuable time and energy. After all, we've got a council to run and essential services to deliver. What we can do as democratically elected local politicians is to make constructive proposals about how democracy can be protected and possibly even enhanced under the new devolution agenda. We owe it to communities that elected us to ensure that the future authority is as representative and as accountable as we are, with appropriate political balance and systems of scrutiny and good governance in place from day one. We're facing the most significant shake-up of local government in 50 years, so it really matters that the future system is an improvement on the current one. The risk with the current proposal is that the people who are supposed to represent our communities end up even more distant and disconnected from residents and businesses and lack proper democratic scrutiny and oversight of their decisions. Just because government isn't consulting us directly doesn't mean that we can't express our concerns publicly and vociferously and negotiate the best deal that we can for our district. Can we use what is at the moment a somewhat tokenistic opportunity to influence a change to the voting system, suggesting some form of PR as opposed to first past the post, which is actually what the majority of voters want? We've got a duty to our residents and the wider community to be involved in this decision-making process as much as we can be, rather than being dragged along with what others think is the right thing for us to do. But to be able to do that, we need facts, figures, modelling, engagement with government, and we have none of those things at the moment. It's for these reasons that I can't support the recommendations in their entirety tonight, as they've been amended beyond recognition from those in the agenda pack. I'll listen carefully and obviously to the debate and the views of others. But the challenge for our Labour councillors is, can they use their positions to help us get the information and clarity we so desperately need from government, or will they continue to hide their political allegiances to the benefit of no one?
Thank you, Natalie. Sarah.
Thank you. I do remember raising this in November. And here we are, 3 months later, and it does appear that all we've got is the same kind of vagueness, but no business case. There's not even an attempt to figure out what's it going to cost, where are the economies of scale. There's nothing here that I can actually vote on. I haven't got the foggiest idea if South Worcestershire can afford to run the SEND provision. What does 2 local plans look like versus 1? And just for Councillor Bennett, as the day the SWDP is ever approved, it becomes out of date because we don't have the housing numbers. So whether we're 1 or 2 unitary authorities, it's, I'm afraid, going straight in the bin because we're, whatever it is, 80% down on numbers. I've got no idea if we can afford to run 2 separate waste disposal services, 2 separate management structures. You know, we've got nothing here to know how we can do this. So I suppose in my mind, the position I'm at is I'm not going to know. I can't know what's the best thing for residents because the only thing that actually matters is residents. So how do we get the best SEND provision for people? I don't care if that's 1 or 2 councils. I want the best SEND provision. So before me, I just see some words that I can't really vote on. I can't make a decision because how do I know? So I think if you look across the councils that have devolved and places like Somerset, which started off from a position of bankruptcy and now we're even further down that hole, there's a lot that is going to happen, and I would want to know the exact figures of what's best for people, and that's not what we've got before us. So I guess the solution going forward would be to examine both options and bring them back. I don't think we should just be looking at one. We should be looking at all options, and then we put them to the government, and frankly, they'll decide. It's not us. So actually, let's just look at everything and put that out there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I come to you, Tom, 1 second. John or Vic, do you want to come back on anything that's been said so far, or that's fine? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm struggling a bit with this. I'll be honest. I mean, it really kind of reflects what Natalie and Sarah have already said, and indeed Martin. It says here in recommendation 1 that the option of a South Worcestershire is likely to provide the best solution for our residents, businesses and visitors. Now, how on earth can I go back to the residents I represent and say to them I voted for this, even though I hadn't got a clue what actually in hard cash terms that would deliver or remove from the services they expect from us as a county council. Now, maybe it's because I'm a county councillor and been there far too long, but I am wounded by the situation at county at the moment. We all are, all county councillors are. The county council is in a financial hole. I'm trying to use my words carefully here. It is a multi-million pound business that's way out of kilter. The income and expenditure lines do not in any way or shape or form marry together. And the reason for that has been alluded to already, specifically in homeschool transport budget, £20 million overspent. The adult services and of course social care for the elderly. 3 huge budgetary areas, about 80% of the council budget. Now, if I understand anything about this Labour government, and there's very little I do understand, we talk about devolution, but this is actually taking away powers from the people we represent rather than empowering them, as far as I can see. So I'm struggling with recommendation 1, Chair, because until I've seen some financial modelling, I do not believe, however much emotionally I'm attached to South Worcestershire, and I am, how much I can actually sell that narrative to the people we represent without actually exploring the modelling that underpins it. So I'd rather keep options open rather than demonstrating a preference at this stage, because I think we're demonstrating a preference in complete blindness. We are completely unaware of that preference, and so it's illogical to have a preference until you understand the data behind it. And however much I would not welcome a county-wide unitary, when I look at the situation in hard business terms, I don't understand how any real efficiencies of scale can be achieved by reducing the amount of services currently provided by the county council, which would be the lion's share of them, in 2. I don't quite understand how that creates any efficiency savings, quite the opposite. So I would suggest that I can't support recommendations in their totality tonight because I can't support recommendation 1.
Thank you, Tom. Jules was next. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mine's quite simple, really. I mean, I concur with everything that's been said by my fellow councillors. It is really difficult to make any recommendation on this because we really don't have the information. That's actually not our fault. It's the fact that we don't have it from government. But I'm wondering how this has been arrived at, who's chosen this. With preferences South Worcestershire, for example, because I didn't think there was a preference at the moment. And then secondly, a point of clarification. The recommendation says, pursue these preferences in discussions with other Worcestershire councils. So that relates to the reorganisation, but also the strategic authority. As far as I can see, item 3 in the recommendation doesn't actually say that the including Gloucestershire and Warwickshire is a preference. It just seems to say we'll consider that along with other options. So that's just really clarification, because I'm not sure we're saying that's a preference, but it might be a preference, but he isn't saying it's a preference. So firstly, on what basis have we made the one preference? And secondly, the other bit I don't think is clear that it's a preference. Sorry if that's a bit jumbled.
No, thank you, Jules. John, can I come to you on that? So I think it's just asking the question of which are preferences? Is it a preference that we want South Worcestershire? Is it a preference that we want Gloucestershire and Warwickshire? And how have they been come to? Is that correct, Jules?
Yeah.
Thank you.
As I think we're asked to, in the response to the proposal for the 28th of November, in the proposal that we're asked to put in, it requires us to say something about the combined authorities. We've got local government reorganisation, we've got the 2-tier going into a unitary, but in that proposal it says what are we going to do, how are we going to implement the combined authority structure, and we have to put in the proposal what investigations, what discussions that we've had and been able to do that. So that's why that's there.
Does that answer your question, Jules?
No, but I won't go on anymore. I mean, really, it's just how do we get here? And I suppose really, what's the next step? I don't know if we're talking to Gloucestershire and Warwickshire, for example, but we're not talking to Herefordshire, if that makes sense. But I don't need an answer, John. It's fine.
Thank you. Can I move to Peter then? 'Cause we had a few hands. So thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I echo much as what has already been said, particularly in relation to the lack of any business case here. There's an old saying in business: when you reorganise, you bleed. And this is a case where hemorrhaging is likely to occur if we split up the existing county council. I have to go on instinct here because I haven't got any real data, and all my instinct tells me that if we start splitting up existing county council services, it's going to be a bun fight, for want of a better term. People are going to be establishing their own territories, we're going to get multiple bureaucracies, we're going to see all the classic behaviour that you get in any organisation, and that isn't in our residents' interests. But more importantly, there is a big debt, as Councillor Wells has already stated, and it's not going to go away. No matter how good our surpluses and those of Wychavon or the city are, they're going to get swallowed up within a couple of years, and we'll be back round in a debt hole. That is sure as eggs is eggs. The government has already made it clear that they will not rescue new unitaries. So bigger in this case, I'm afraid, for our residents, is almost certainly going to be better, less complicated, and involve less jockeying for position. And on those very simple grounds, even without a business case, I cannot vote for item 1 as it's laid down at the moment. It makes no sense.
Thank you, Peter. So it was Malcolm next, and then I'll come over there.
Thank you, Chair. I can only really echo much of what has already been said. I think Peter's point is absolutely right. Tom's concern, being also a county councillor, I appreciate the level of commitment to adult social care and particularly SEND transport to get children to schools that haven't been built. It goes round and round. The reserves, I think you said here, are 1.4 million, whereas the debt at county is 20 million. This is going to be handed on directly to whatever council comes around, and the government has said that there are no get out of jail cards. We will simply have to take on those responsibilities, and as Peter said, scale is going to matter. The minimum that they suggest is 500,000, so that suggests that the whole county would be a better size preference than the two smaller areas, which we're emotionally attached to, but we have to simply see that our resources cannot cover the losses that will be incurred in the changeover. So I don't think I can support the recommendations, and that we really should be looking at the whole of Worcestershire as the unitary authority, simply because of the scale of the problems that we'll be taking on. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Douglas first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The devil in the detail, isn't it? The taxation base is what's going to count, and that's why we're trying to group rich counties together. Worcestershire, Warwickshire and Gloucestershire are quite rich counties. They've got a fairly wealthy client base. Herefordshire is the poor little one on the end, and they're going to be left alone. There they are, right? They're on the wing towards the Welsh border. Nobody wants you. Oh, there we are. You're lumped in with Worcestershire. This is a wish list. We know it's a wish list. Let's start with something that we know is working. We've got a good working relationship with the districts in the southern area. We've got quite a lot of interplay between the different councils already. We've got a lot of service contracts which are working. Whatever replaces them would have to have the same sort of successor body clause in the contracts for the service level agreements, and otherwise there'll be just an absolute bun fight for contract lawyers and litigation on loss of income and all that sort of thing. Bleeding, Councillor Watsley said about the loss of blood. I can see it on the table now. You know, I've said to Andy Baldwin, 100 million is not going to cover it, and I don't think it would. So my instinct is, this is a wish list. Let's wish for what we want at the front. Somebody mentioned the county council's deficit of 20 million. I don't know, Tom, I thought it was 63. 63 million this year and 100 and something next, right? So, you know, whatever authority is created, they're very likely to be servicing a 113 notice very quickly because they're going to be bankrupt the day they're formed. So it is all to do with taxation base. And, you know, the idea that we go in with Gloucester and Warwickshire and Worcestershire, very good, that's fine. I think Natalie said it's already been decided. I think there's a map in Angela Rayner's office. The Three Counties Association, Hereford, Worcestershire and Gloucestershire. Thank you very much. End of story.
Douglas, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I actually echo that last bit. I think it's already been decided and all of this is going to be a little bit arbitrary. But I think we should do exactly what Douglas has just said, which is to try and keep to what we think we would best with. And to ignore Herefordshire anyway and talk to Warwickshire is a little bit idealistic, I think, because if we can extend that far, then and Herefordshire is left on its own, that would just not make any sense whatsoever for a metropolitan authority, you know, for the bigger level. You know, we are the three counties, and we're going to probably have to put up with that, whether we like it or not. This is not something that we are deciding to do. This is something that government is going to do. And we're just trying to make the best of it.
Thank you, Paul. We've got a few speakers now, so Jeremy, next.
Thanks. So the purpose of this motion is not to say, you know, this is what we're going to do, full stop. The purpose of this motion is to enable our leader and the chief exec to talk to other parties to see who we can work with, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what Malvern Hills District Council wants to do on its own. We can't go and dance on our own. We have to go and dance with other people. So the purpose of this is to instruct our leader and our chief exec to go and speak to others and come back to us with what everyone thinks and what we think might be a way going forward. And we've got the EGM coming up for that to discuss and take that forward. In terms of, so I don't think anyone's saying we don't want to instruct the leader and the chief exec to go away and have those conversations. The issue seems to be around point one, which is, you know, the discussion for the unitary. Now, the reason why I think that that's there is to put a bit of welly behind making sure it gets a fair hearing. Because let's face it, there was a big push from the county level to come up with the unitary. County were pushing for fast track. And lots of people writing saying we're looking for fast track. So do we want to go into a conversation instructing our leader to say, well, what do you want to do? We haven't got an opinion. This is basically saying we have got an opinion. This is our opinion. We'd like to push for South Worcestershire, but we'll also engage on other options on the table. So in my view, this is the best of both worlds. This is saying, let's go and talk to our potential partners. We'd like to do this, but let's get a report back, see who's prepared to work with us, and then take the decision at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Jeremy. Paul Cummings.
Much has been made of the fact we don't have a business plan in front of us this evening. It's a bit difficult to have a business plan when you've no idea what you're trying to compare in the first place. But the piece of paper I've got says that both the options, South Worcestershire and, two Worcester councils and one county council, should be explored further prior to the submission of proposals. I can't see what the problem is with that. That means a business case or whatever we require. So I think it's quite clear we have to move forward. We should express our opinion as to which we think is the best option at this stage, because we're here to represent our residents and we have to make a judgment as to what we think is best for them. So I've had a lot of objections. I agree entirely with it not being a good idea, but it's going to happen. We're not going to get any say in that, so we have to make the best of the situation we're in, and it's up to us to decide which we believe to be the best, or the better, rather than the best.
Thank you, Paul. So the speakers I've got at the moment, I'm coming to Natalie next, then Martin, then Beverly, and then Malcolm. So, okay, that's fine. I'll put you in pencil. Natalie.
Thank you. Just picking up on the point made, why is recommendation there if we are not recommending that that course of action is a preference over the one Worcestershire option? We have to submit a response by the 21st of March, but as I understand it, it doesn't have to be a firm proposal or a plan for the new unitary. It can just be simply that we've made progress and discussed things. So on that basis, actually, I'd like to propose an amendment that we remove recommendation 1 from the recommendations and proceed with voting for 2, 3, 4 and 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Come to Martin.
You sort of thrown me, so I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and then you might want to change what you were going to say. I don't know. I'd like to really support this. I think we need to try and speak as one voice, because if we do, I think it carries more weight. I have a problem with recommendation 1 because this district council believes. How can it believe? Because we haven't got any figures. If you can produce the figures to show me and prove to me that it's the best, I will be delighted to support it, because I would like the South Worcestershire Unitary Authority. But at the moment there aren't any figures. I was going to suggest an amendment that you changed it to Malvern Hills District Council believes both options should be explored. It's fairly... Yeah, it is, but it solves the problem with what you've got with number 1. Number 2 only says we accept. There's a difference, it's a fine difference, but there is a difference there. Malvern Hills District Council believes that both options should be explored. That gives the leader the mandate to go away and talk to other people about both options, to get the figures, to be able to come back to us on the 18th and present them and say, this is the outcome, these are the figures, this is, I believe, the best option because of X, Y and Z. So if Natalie would withdraw her amendment, I would hope that you won't. Okay. So we're going round in Roman. So chances are I would probably have to abstain on this. But it's a shame, because I think we need to find a way to speak with one voice if we can. And I do think we need to empower the leader. But we've got to have figures before we can believe one option is better than the other. Thank you.
I've got a right to reply, I think. Martin, you named me, so I can comment. I'm not willing to withdraw it, because actually it does say exactly what Martin said in point 2, recommendation 2, that we accept that 2 main options are on the table at the moment. And the first recommendation definitely steers us towards that being a preferable option of having a South Worcestershire Authority. As many of us have said tonight, we don't have the evidence to back that up, which is why I'm recommending that is removed in its entirety from the recommendations, point 1.
I'm going to continue to go around. Beverly.
Oh, I was going to second that.
Well, thanks so much. I haven't really got anything to say about the amendment, but I just wanted to emphasise that at this stage we are looking for a preference, and the believe word is around a preference that we are expressing because it's an authority potentially closer to our residents. We have a track record of working with a shared service across Wychavon and Malvern Hills. We have a South Worcestershire Development Plan, which has been a really successful bit of work over a 10-year period. So that's why there's a preference being expressed there. Option 2 is accepting of the reality that the county has put forward a one unitary, and it is interesting to note that Worcester City has put forward a unanimous preference for a South Worcestershire Authority, which has included all of the councillors voting in favour of that option for South Worcestershire, so including Green councillors on Worcester City. I do want to just say a word about Herefordshire, because I don't think Herefordshire is purposely being left out on its own. I'd just like to reassure you, Councillor Bennett. Herefordshire is actually unitary, as we know already, and it is under 200,000, and it is sort of stating, as I understand it, its preference to remain as a unitary on its own with under 200,000 population. But in the last few years, I understand it has been working with Shropshire and, in fact, a couple of other counties in Wales in a Marches alliance. So, you know, it's looking, I mean, it may change, all may change, but it has been looking that way. I think in terms of the financial situation, which a great deal has been made of this evening, understandably, there is an exceptional financial support package for councils, and that is not seeking to take a punitive approach to councils which have these exceptional deficits. So I don't sort of see that as a reason not to have a view, frankly, at this meeting on one's preference. And I would just also like to say, to try and reassure colleagues about the unitary size and economies of scale, which again much has been made of this evening. There are already 62 unitaries in England with an average population size of 240,000, some of which have been operating perfectly successfully across adult social care, children's social care, send transport needs. So it isn't a sort of bygone or foregone conclusion that just because you've got a smaller unitary, you cannot cater to the needs of your population. So I think all we're looking to do this evening is express a preference, accept the reality that two options appear to be on the table with the unitary, and with the strategic authority, one step above the unitary proposals, there's the option to look quite strategically, economically at South Midlands and how that might counterbalance with potentially a population, say, of 650,000, a GVA, I was going to say, of 65 billion across that three-county area of Gloucestershire, Worcestershire and Warwickshire, the GVA of Birmingham at about 100 billion, and you would have a really serious counterbalance to it. So I think, this is worth our consideration and worth accepting the recommendations this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. I'm just going to come to Jeremy first as a point of order, but then to Paul Bennett as a right to reply as well, because you were mentioned, Paul.
Yeah, just a point of order around what we're voting for, in particular, what will come back. So we've had talk about budgets. Can I get the Chief Exec's view on what we are expecting back on the 18th of March for the Council? Is that a recommendation, or is that going to be something that includes the budgets?
So the government have asked for an interim plan by the 21st of March. We now know that that's nothing more than a progress update. But I do need the council to agree to that interim plan. So in the period between now and our special council meeting, we'll be working on an interim plan with the other councils in Worcestershire. The expectation is it's a single interim plan for the county. I think at this stage, I would suggest that the only interim plan will carry the two options. I think the point of the debate tonight is to make sure that any preferences that we have is included in that interim plan. I think we're heading there anyway, but it's to tease out if there are any other options. It's unlikely that the interim plan will get into too much detail in terms of business case because of the time available. I'd envisage that, plus any consultation will take place after March and before November, before we decide on final proposals. And equally, I don't expect the interim plan to have anything definitive about the strategic authority. Again, it's a preference for now, so that beyond March and up to the period in the November submission, we can have appropriate conversations with partner councils in the area.
Thank you. Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that when I was talking about Herefordshire, it was in relation to the upper tier, not necessarily the lower tier, because they do want to remain independent. But also, just a point on the debt coming from the county. Obviously, if we're only half of it, we only get half the blooming debt. So, at the end of the day, or maybe even a lower proportion, that I don't even know what it would be. But these figures will come out. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to come to Malcolm. Just firstly, Sarah, you wanted to second. Do you want to do that now?
Well, I was going to second it, but now Tom would like to second it, but I do have some stuff to say, but I can wait.
Then I'm going to go to Malcolm because he wasn't.
So, Chairman, if I can second it and just say that it would be really nice, wouldn't it, tonight, if we could get a very clear sense of direction. And at the moment, we're not, because the issue is about recommendation 1, isn't it? I think everything that we really want to do is included in 2, 3 and 4, And there's no absolute need for us right now and right tonight to say what we're saying about what we think's best for our residents. I really don't think there's any need for that. And it isn't so much about inheriting the debt. It's about the learning that we've taken from Worcestershire County Council in the last few years, those of us who have been on it. It's not viable. Okay, it's not viable. It's not so much inheriting the £30 million, half the £60 million debt. That's an issue in itself. But more importantly, if a county council the size of Worcestershire can't manage social care without massive issues, financial issues, I'm not sure it'd be more resilient to divide it into two, ditto school transport and everything else. I think it would be very difficult. So I suppose I see that because I attend county council meetings. If I didn't see county council meetings, I might be a bit more supportive of the concept of a South Worcestershire. Just a final point I would make, a cynical old so-and-so that I am, Worcester City are clearly very keen on a South Worcestershire. Ask yourselves, why? And the answer is they see themselves as the dominant force within that. The county city, geographically there, and they keep all the things that matter to them as a focus. I'm not sure we would get any better deal being dominated by Worcester City than having a county-wide scheme. And the final thing I would say is that if we end up with a county-wide scheme, that doesn't mean to say we can't have localism, okay? We could return to those halcyon days where we had a highway partnership unit in Malvern, combining Worcestershire County Council highway issues with our own under one auspices, one roof. So I'm just making a suggestion to the leader, perhaps, that if he were to take away item 1, I'm sure we could vote for the rest. If he doesn't want to do that, then we'll clearly have an amendment to do that, and it may get through or may not. It'll be on a tight number, won't it?
Yeah, fine. So it was Malcolm next and on to Sarah. Can I just say, obviously there's a lot of people just speaking in the background. We just wanted to hear everybody else that's actually talking at the time, if that's okay. So Malcolm.
Thank you, yes. A few people have spoken since I put my hand up, but I think that the removal of recommendation 1 is a way of bringing all of us on side together. We don't have to express a preference as yet. We can accept that there are two main options and take it from there. We have no evidence to say this is the best solution for our residents, and speaking as a county councillor, I can see the pitfalls that could be around the corner if we try to. So that's my support for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Sarah?
Yeah, I think they both actually said what I thought, and what I said originally was, why would we? My preference would be to look at both. Why would we exclude one over the other? And I understand it's then to give the leader privilege to go and reflect what we want, but actually he can now talk to everyone about every plan and option and see what's actually really better for every resident in our district, rather than going down just the one option. So if there's an issue with having to follow the one option, and I'm not quite sure what somebody just said, why do we need to pursue one over the other? Why can't we be doing the best for our residents? And also, we've all forgotten Shropshire. So we've been worrying about what's going to happen to Herefordshire, but if we get Herefordshire, Shropshire's going to be just like on its own in the middle of nowhere, and we're going to have to give it to Wales. So there are other like counties. I mean, I suppose we could give Herefordshire to Wales, couldn't we? But it's like there is quite a large rural chunk of not very much, of very poor unitary authorities who struggle because of their tax base, who don't have a lot of things going on, and we will get lumped with some of them. I just don't know who. But don't forget Shropshire, because it's nice there.
Thank you, Sarah. Kathy, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I agree that it is best if we can speak as one. Obviously, we want to send our leader and chief exec out there to discuss all options. If the interim plan is a progress update, there seems little reason to have to express a preference. And since this council doesn't seem to be able to agree on a preference, wouldn't that be the best option?
Thank you, Kathy. I believe Beverly. your hand?
I don't really have very much to add, except that I don't think that the unitary plan is intended to sort of have there's a dominant city or a dominant area. The idea is to gain some strength through the strategic authority, having a strategic perspective and ability to gain greater independence and ability to, in particular, lever in funding for greater infrastructure requirement, your skills needs, etc. So I don't see that the dominance of Worcester would be a threat to Malvern Hills or Wychavon in this discussion. It would be about coming together in a unitary, having a planning capacity alongside your highways capacity, being able to deal with your residents' needs very directly, and understanding them very clearly as a local unitary authority, and then working with your other authorities to come up with this bigger plan, which actually should put you on a stronger footing versus the city region authorities, which clearly have had some years ahead of these proposals. So that's where I see the strength of this set of proposals for us as Shire authorities.
Sorry, thank you. Dean?
I was really agnostic about this when I first heard about it, because I didn't have any knowledge. Now, people are asking for knowledge now. I haven't got any more knowledge. We're not going to get the knowledge. There are so many different financial inputs that you can put. It's almost Anders here, and we know, oh, he's still here, and we know the definition of where you get to the accountancy, where you can fudge the figures around whichever way you want. In the end, there's going to be the same amount of money coming in virtually, and it's going to be split amongst the same number of people. Now, how well that money is managed is a different matter. And I think, yes, county have had problems which they haven't been able to deal with, but they've made, I think if Andy had been there, to be honest, guiding them, they'd have been in a damn sight better position. And possibly because they got more councillors actually directing what's happening when it gets as big as it does down up at County Council. So they have so little voice with them. Now, one of the things that's really swung me, and it's totally swung me, is I've not met anybody, and I've spoken to quite a few people about it, and I've not yet met anybody who thinks going County Council unitary is a good idea. And I'm not on about politicians. I'm on about people I've talked to in the pub or parish councils or whatever. They all want, in fact, they're very worried about losing their local representation because they see how much they see of their county councillors sometimes. I know some of their county councillors here are very active, but certainly there are county councillors who aren't, and possibly because they've got too much to do and too big an area to actually encompass. I say when people actually want me to do something, they don't talk to me about being councillor clerk. It's, Dean, can you do something? And that's the difference. Now, I'm not, some of this wordsmithing came down to where I influenced because I wanted to direct John or give John the power to go there and argue for something I believe is preferable, not on a business case. I say I don't believe we can get an accurate business case for one another. It's just not possible. There are too many variables. It's like making a cake as opposed to making a scientific formula. In the end, it comes down to, do I believe that big is beautiful, or do I believe that small is better? And I believe that the smaller we can be, the more local democratic input we can have, and the better it is for local people. I would support this motion. I would go against the amendment for that very reason, because we don't give any force to our actual belief. If it is your belief, and I accept there are people here who don't believe it, who want a unitary or a large unitary, or do believe that some magic fairy is going to come and give us a financial answer on it, that one's better than the other. mine is a purely, I think, political belief that we should actually take a political decision on what we think is best for our residents and actually give our leader the power to go and try and persuade others that that is so. I suspect in the end, as others have said, it will make damn all difference. It's already been decided. But I would like us to at least have a go at it.
Thank you, Dean. I'm going to come to Andrew, but just in the meantime, and then to Christine as well. If there's anybody else that hasn't spoken yet in particular, if you could just show me your hands, and then we'll go to a vote on the amendment. But Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that's been mentioned is a fear of Worcester City Council. One thing I haven't heard is, and when we're talking, especially when we're talking about the two unitary option, in which we would get Worcester City, is the economic heft of Worcester City. Worcester City advertise that they have the largest portion of economic benefit in the county. In the two unitary options, to have that benefit undiluted, as opposed to the one unitary, against half the debt, we're making judgments on incomplete data. We're making judgments on generalities that could be. I'm merely suggesting that the known economic heft of Worcester City Council and their desire for the two unitary setup, we must consider very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Christine?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to follow on from something that Dean said. I appreciate that we are reluctant for this happening, but we know it's going to happen. And I talk to residents as well, and they don't know one council from another. We're just the council. But a lot of people have said, well, who's consulted us? And I do recall a couple of weeks ago on one of our Midlands politics shows that a district council in Staffordshire had already gone out to consultation, so they knew what the public felt about it. And this is why I'm so uncomfortable about this, because we don't know at this stage. We've not been out to consultation, and you know, for efficiencies, especially at the statutory level that the Worcester County Council has to work at, you know, this is going to be very difficult dividing into, you know, the Send Children crisis has been mentioned several times tonight. And I think if we've got a very small council with a lot, you know, not many funds, these children are being really badly affected at the moment. They've been very badly treated. See, you're nodding, Jenny. We know the reality of what is happening to children. Putting our residents first is the most important thing. And I don't feel capable that I know what our residents think. I know what our parents think at the school gate about the absolute desperate crisis that's going through with the SEND problem. And I know that they would want us to support what is best for our residents and our children of the future. So I would like a lot more consultation with the public on this.
Thank you, Christine. David?
Yeah, to follow on from Councillor Clark, I mean, from the discussions I've had with various people, I think the concept of South Worcestershire, because people can relate to Malvern Hills and the surrounding area and Worcester, means that they will be more engaged in the future with that council than trying to keep them engaged in a larger authority. So I think from that point of view, the southern half and a small council would be better. And I think we need to give the executive and the leader the option to push this alternative, if we take it off here as a preference, it could get watered down and swallowed up by other people. So I think we need to go in this just as an arguing point to get the best option for the local residents. And by the way, Shropshire, I think, could stand on their own feet because they have over 500,000. So I don't think we need to worry about Shropshire too much. They're big enough to be their own unitary.
Thank you, David. So I'm looking back to you, Natalie. Obviously, you tabled an amendment. Could you just remind us what that is, and we'll take a vote on that amendment?
Sorry. Yeah, thanks for coming back to me. I don't think I really need to repeat it much. Everybody that's spoken after me has articulated exactly why we think that recommendation 1 should be removed from the recommendations, and that's what I'd like to move, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do. Tom did. So in terms of the amendment, all those in favour, please raise your hands. And all those against? So Chair, that vote is for 15 votes against 15 votes, and as it's a tied vote, Chair, would you like to use your casting vote?
I'm unfortunate, Natalie. I'm afraid I'm not going to change, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to be against that.
Okay, so that vote on the amendment is lost, so we return to the original proposal made by Councillor Gallagher and seconded by Councillor Owenson. On all those voting in favour of that proposal?
Sorry, what was
The original proposal made by John.
which is 1 to 4?
Yes. And all those against? And all those abstaining? So, Chair, that vote is carried with 17 votes for, 12 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Misha. And you know, genuinely thank you to everybody for the thoughts and opinions and a good debate and discussion in that. I know, you know, I would imagine that the leader and chief exec will take everything that's been said on board as well, taking that forward. Agenda item 10 is a forward plan, obviously for noting only, and we have no notices of motion. So thank you everybody for your attendance this evening. Look forward to seeing you soon.